We are recording this and we are putting it on Facebook Live as well. So bear with me as I get that started. The process that we want to do this is Jason will work through his presentation, and if he has questions he wants you to answer immediately, we'll do that. But for the most part, let's keep ourselves muted and our video off. And if you do have questions, put it in the chat area, and we'll come back to those. We'll loop back into the near the end. So again, don't be afraid to put in the chat. Rob, I'm going to take you off Zoom, even though I'm interested in seeing what you're cooking there. And I'll try and get to everyone by the end. Okay. All right, Jason, all yours, my friend.
All right, guys. Hey, nice to meet you. Nice to meet everybody. Like Ryan said, my name is Jason, doing my master's at Ottawa, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you for the opportunity. It is an opportunity for me as much as it is for you. So, resetting for 2021. Everything got canceled. It really sucks. What do we do now? So, there's 3 things that I want you guys to take away from today's presentation. Number 1, fostering some understanding. So being able to understand not only the situation that we're in, but also understanding yourselves and how to do that. Like, what questions do we ask? What do we do with those answers? Second piece is motivated action. So looking to actually fuel that change, fuel doing something about it. And then number 3, knowing where to start. So what do we actually do? Where do we begin? What's that first step? What's that second step? And so I love this photo because, difficult roads lead to beautiful destinations. I don't only want to give you information, I also want you to figure out how to motivate yourselves and how to use it. And so throughout this presentation, we're going to kind of go through a thought experiment. Now, I want you to imagine like you're on a hike, and the goal was to reach 2020. But unfortunately, the weather's changed, or there's been a change in plan. We can't go there anymore. There's a huge barrier. We can't do it. And so what do you do? That first step, understanding. So how does the cancellation of the season and the changes due to COVID-19 affect us? So there's just an aside on the presentation itself. It's going to be a number of these slides that pop up. They're reflective slides. Because it's a webinar, you don't have to actually answer back. You can just answer in your head. I will pause for maybe 15 seconds for you to reflect on it, but we can discuss that stuff at the end or at a later date. What I'd welcome you to do, again, is just reflect on it on your own. Even write the question down if you're taking notes. So how does this affect us? If we go back, if we go back to that idea of the hike, what does it mean is, where are we? How are we feeling about this? We can't make it to the 2020 summit anymore. What do we do? And so this involves recognizing and understanding our subjective experience. So this comprises of 3 things, which is our thoughts. So what are we thinking? What are you telling yourself? What's that inner voice saying? Are they good thoughts? Are they bad thoughts? Are there even good or bad thoughts? What are you feeling? So what emotions are you experiencing? Anger, sadness, having everything canceled really does suck. And so how do you feel about it? Are there any physical manifestations of these experiences? So does that mean you feel tense when you think about having things being canceled? Do you get a headache when that happens? Do you start breathing fast? Does your heart start racing? And then behavior. So what are we doing? Are we doing anything differently now, given that there's cancellations, given that there's new rules to being on the water. As an example, maybe you don't have a sleep schedule anymore, because there's a lot less structure in your life. But that's an example of a change in behavior. And so being able to recognize where you're at right now and what's changed is that foundational piece from which to start. So that's going to help us continue moving forward. So continuing along with this idea, what do we do with this information? So where can we be putting our energy and our attention? Back to the map idea, back to the hiking idea. If we're looking for focus, maybe we have a pair of binoculars. It's going to allow us to zero in on something that we want to look at or gain more information about. Bringing this back to our context, the very first thing, the most powerful thing to do based on what you've recognized in terms of your thoughts, your feelings, and your behaviors is to accept it flat out. So accepting the reality that we're in kind of disarms the future destructive reactions that you can have. I'll run you through a quick thought experiment. If you're driving on the highway and someone cuts you off, how do you react? Immediately you're super angry. You think these thoughts that you might not want to share out loud. Your heart starts racing because you're all riled up. Well, if you decide to accept those feelings, they tend to dissipate much faster. And then basically you can change where you have that energy. And so if you want to define acceptance, it's this idea of non-judgmental or non-reactive orientation towards whatever you're thinking, feeling, or doing. So if something happens, it's okay. You can tell yourself it's okay. It's a mantra that I use that's super, super poignant, super powerful. Get cut off on the highway, it's okay. You end up calming down a lot faster. You end up going back to regular life or going back to whatever you're trying to do in a more timely fashion. On that idea comes refocus. So if we focus on what we can control, that brings us the most return on time and energy. So let's think about COVID-19 again. We can't control what's going on in the world. We can't control the fact that there's new cases. We can't control the way that people are doing testing. We can't control the events being canceled as a means of keeping everybody safe. We can't control the reactions of others to these same things. But what we can control is how we react. So it's back to that recognizing step. How we react and how we decide to act is what we can control. And this is where we're going to have our focus. Because this is what's going to help us bring us towards where we really want to go. And so what I invite you to do, definitely on your own, is you can make a list. You say, hey, on one side, this is what's outside of my control. On the other side, you have what's within our control. And you'd be surprised at what you list down and where you're actually focusing your energy. If Haley was talking before about how people were self-policing around our neighborhood. Well, that's spending a lot of energy on things that are outside of your control. I can't control what the other person does. And if I'm trying to change their behavior against their will, it's even more of a waste of energy. And so I'm going to focus on, or we're going to focus on, what we can do to advance whatever we're trying to do. So taking action. I would like to see the participants. There we go. So what can we do first? You know, we've recognized, we understand what's going on, we understand how we're feeling. We've accepted how we feel. No, this is okay. Given that these circumstances or situations are outside of our control, there isn't much use in worrying about them. And then we refocus on what we can do. And now, what do we do first? Back to the analogy of our hike. You know, why are we on the hike to begin with? You know, maybe you love going to the top of the mountain and seeing the view. Maybe you love just hiking itself. You love going through the trees, going through the wilderness, having that experience. And so what I welcome you guys to do is to reconnect with your why. So why are you paddling? Why are you training every day? Why do you have the goal, or why did you have the goals that you set in 2020? You know, if you said, hey, I wanted to win this particular competition, or I wanted to win a medal, let's say at Canada Games, like why did you make those goals to begin with? And so one way to stay motivated is to reconnect or to remember your why. And so here's some example things that you can ask yourself, and you can see if you connect with these or not. So why do I paddle? Because I love paddling and winning. Why do I paddle? This is just what I do. I'm paddling. Why do I paddle? Because I see the benefits of paddling. You know, it's healthy for me. It gives me structure. Why do I paddle? Because winning is what I think I should do. You know, I think I need to paddle. Why do I paddle? Because paddling is what others think I should do. You know, my parents really want me to paddle, so I'm paddling. My coaches really want me to stay here, so I'm paddling. Why do I paddle? I don't want to paddle anymore. It's a perfectly normal option.
I'm afraid.
Pardon me? Hold on a second. Here we go. So, and it doesn't only have to be one of these things. It can be 2, 3, 4. It can be all of them. But the ones at the top are going to have the most impact. So the fact that you love paddling, so that intrinsic motivation to paddle is the one that's going to be the biggest motivator. And we know that if you encounter some like hurdles or challenges that challenge your motivation, well, the higher you are up on this scale, the more likely you are to continue and overcome. The second thing that we can do is take a deep breath. Remember, a lot of these things are outside our control, or outside of our control. And so let's take a deep breath. It's going to be okay. When was the last time you guys actually took a conscious breath? You know, was it earlier today? Was it yesterday? Was it maybe years ago? I know for me, it was right before the start of this presentation, taking a conscious breath. And before that was probably yesterday. You know, connecting to your breath brings this idea of balance or balancing effect when you might be encountering situations of high reactivity. You know, come back to this idea of getting cut off on the highway. Someone cuts you off, right away what you can do is take a deep breath, and then that anger dissipates and it goes away, or at least you feel a little bit less. Right? And it's not because you're trying to get rid of it that it goes away. It's because you've accepted it and then you've focused on something else, i.e. your breath, and that's why it's gone away. And so what I invite everybody to do is actually, we're going to do a breathing exercise together. This is one of the only times in this presentation that I'm going to ask for some interaction. And so what I'd like everybody to do is to find a comfortable seat. I know some of you are cooking. If you're cooking, I'd ask you to just take 1 minute off. If you're standing, that's okay. I want you to just feel the way your feet are touching the ground. And then if you can, I want you to put your hands on your legs. We're going to close our eyes. We're going to go through 1 minute of breathing. We're going to instruct you to inhale on a count and then exhale on a count. I'm going to do that 3 times. And then you're going to try on your own for 3 times. Let's close our eyes. Let's all exhale together. And inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. And exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. And inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. And exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. And inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. And exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Good. 3 more now on your own. All right. So the intended outcome of taking a deep breath is you just relaxing, calming down, reconnecting with where you are in the moment, the environment you're in, presentation, my voice. And so 6 breaths per minute, or around 6 breaths per minute, leads to calming the body and mind. It's widely researched, very, very useful technique in any kind of situational uncertainty. There's a caveat here, and that's if you're going to use it in a performance context, it really, really depends. I think that would require more training and understanding exactly what the purpose of or what the use of it is for in that performance context. But using this in a well-being context, in a trying to reconnect and accept context, it's perfect. It is the #1 thing to do. So next, what do we want to achieve in 2021? This is what's on the horizon now. 2020 is done. So we're thinking long-term, what's there? Yes, it's far away, but we know where it is. If we take our hiking example again, we can take a map. We can look at the map and we say, hey, yeah, this is where we want to go. See, 2021 is now popped up on the map. We see where we need to go. We see it on the horizon. We see it in the distance. It looks beautiful. So let's dream big. And if we allow ourselves a moment to dream, we get really excited. Right? This is this motivation I'm talking about. And so back to this idea of understanding what we want to achieve, it motivates us. Right? If you tell yourself, hey, I want to win a medal at Canada Games, or hey, I want to win a medal at the Olympics, well, that should light a fire in you. Or else you should ask yourself why you're making that goal. Right? And that fire is what's going to lead us into 2021. Actionable step for coaches and athletes here is make one big goal. So it might be huge, it might be lofty, but that's okay. If you believe you can do it and it's going to motivate you, it serves its purpose, you need that one big goal. All the other goals that you're going to make are going to fall under that one big goal. So there's 2 end goal types that I want to highlight here. One is outcome goals, and the second is performance goals. So what's an outcome goal? It's something that's specific, it's measurable against others, like winning a medal, like coming in a certain place, like winning a game. It's outcome dependent, and therefore there are some parts of it, or there are a lot of parts of it that are outside of your control, i.e. the performance of others, and then some that are within your control, which is your performance. And so it's important to notice and realize the difference between those two, and realize that outcome goals, it's also dependent on others. That second type, performance goals. So this is one that's specific and it's measured against ourselves. So if you want to go our best time, or if you want to make a certain standard, or if you just want to complete something like completing a race, if we're talking about an endurance event, then that's a performance goal. A lot more of that goal is within your control, even though there are still other factors that are outside of your control, let's say like the environmental conditions on a body of water or on the lake. And again, with this idea of one big goal, it can be either an outcome goal or a performance goal. It can be either one. Outcome goal example, again, winning a medal at the Olympics or winning the gold medal. And a performance goal would be, let's say, getting a world record, being the fastest. So how do we get there? How are we going to achieve our 2021 goals? So we see where we're going, but there's lots of path and steps in between, and it's not necessarily that clear cut out. How do you decide what to do today, tomorrow, next week, next month to be able to get there? So back to our hiking example. If you're hiking, we can use a compass, because a compass is going to allow us, or it's going to direct us in the correct direction to make sure that we stay on track towards that goal. And so let's create some steps. So developing a plan and having steps are going to help us stay guided, focused, and motivated. This is where the third goal type comes into play. And that's a process goal. So these are also specific, but they can be repeated, and they're measured by being done. And so an example is like showing up on time for training. I remember when I was doing goal setting meetings over the past handful of years with my athletes at McGill before I came to Ottawa. We sit down, we do a goal setting meeting, basically at the beginning and at the end of every semester, and we would pick one, maybe two process goals that would help underpin the outcome and performance goals that they had decided to take on during that semester or longer term. And so, an example would be, let's say you have an athlete that wants to go 145, 500 meter. And, well, that this athlete isn't particularly good at being consistent in the way they do efforts in practices. Well, a great process goal would be to say, hey, you know what? I want you to be as consistent as you can during the main block of training at every workout. Or we can be more specific and say, hey, I want you to be super consistent with the first 4 efforts out of, maybe 6 or 8 efforts in the training block. And that small goal allows them to stay focused and allows them to progress towards that big dream goal. And that's where the goal relations comes in. And so basically process goals, they break down performance and outcome goals into doable steps. And then the performance and outcome goals help you stay motivated to complete the process goals. And so there's this kind of like bi-directional relationship between the two, where they both need to exist in order for you to be most likely to accomplish what you're trying to get done. In terms of combinations, that's possible too. If you could have more of a very small process style performance or outcome goal, where you say, hey, like I want you to beat everybody in practice today, if it's a super high intensity workout. Or you can say, hey, like I want you to hold a certain pace time for these efforts. Like that's a performance, but done over a longer period, and it's in a very focused chunk. So that would be a performance process goal. One of my favorite conversations to have: are there any hurdles? And how can we overcome them? So in any good plan, you equip yourself with tools to be able to take on whatever hurdles or barriers or challenges you run into. While we're hiking, I'm going to bring my axe. So if I run into trees that I have to chop down, or I have to set up camp and chop wood, I have the axe. If I encounter an animal that wants to kill me, I'm going to be able to fight it off with an axe. Bringing this back to our context, the obstacle is the way. And so it's the fact that we have obstacles that allow us to grow. So as a coach, even just discussing potential obstacles with your athletes already starts kind of the gears and thinking about, hey, like, yeah, this might happen, and they're going to be ready for it. So it helps us to react adaptively when they arise. So let's say you're back on the highway, you're driving in a particular province, and those provincial drivers don't have a very good reputation, we'll say. And so you're almost kind of expecting people to cut you off. Well, when they do, you're going to react less because you knew that this might be something that would happen. And then, provided something like that does happen, you know what to do. You can plan for it. You know, you're going to take a deep breath. You know, you're going to slow down, and you're going to continue along your way. And everyone's safe and happy, and we continue. So same thing for the sport context. If you know that, weather might be an issue, the waves on a lake might be an issue. And so if you have a plan in place to say, hey, if this happens, we're going to do this, or if this happens, we're going to be able to go and do this, then you know that you can continue working towards whatever goal that you're trying to achieve. And in sorts, obstacles kind of become opportunities. And so they become opportunities because when you're able to reflect, come up with solutions, and also think about past experiences, this gives you the confidence to be able to continue doing what you're doing and do it better. And all that together, again, allows you to grow. So, who can help us? This is probably the most important piece of this presentation. Is that we're not in it alone. And so, as we're hiking, my friends are with me. My coaches are with me. My peers are with me. We went as a group. We're going to be able to overcome and complete whatever we've decided to do together way better because we're together. And so together we are better. Developing a network and using it for support. So again, knowing that your coaches are there to help. The athletes are there to help. Parents are there to help. Partners are there to help. Friends are there to help. Staff is there to help. Your neighbors are there to help. If just being able to open up and tell them about what you've been recognizing, this is the first slide, can be huge. Given COVID-19, at first it was called social distancing, when in reality it's not social distancing, it's physical distancing. I'm very happy they renamed it, because we shouldn't be socially distancing. If anything, we need to be coming more together, and we need to support each other, because now that we're lacking opportunities to actually see each other in person, that's when we need the support the most. And so I'd like to highlight here just one skill that I think everybody can be better at. Coaches, athletes, staff, everybody. And this has really been the key to my coaching, is active listening. And so when you're listening, you're paying attention, you're making eye contact, you're mirroring body language, you're staying silent, you're not interrupting, you're taking pauses. There's going to be silence. That's okay. The other person's probably thinking. You're thinking. You see it very often where you have people that are already thinking about what they're going to say, and then they kind of tune out to what's actually going on. And the better at listening you become, the more you're able to see that out, and then you can call them out. But it starts with just paying attention and then taking the time to understand. So if you're taking the time to understand and not judge, so basically using that recognizing skill that we talked about earlier, but with somebody else telling you about their experience, then there's no way you're going to interrupt, because everything is just kind of ruminating around, and you're thinking, and you're thinking, and you're thinking. And then once it's settled, once they've finished speaking, then you can continue to engage in this lovely, fruitful conversation. And the biggest thing is that they feel like they've been heard. You know, it really sucks to get cut off when someone's speaking. And so this idea of listening is something that we can all get better at, and that we definitely have to think about actively at first to improve. And so now is the time to take targeted action. Let's recap what we did. Number 1, recognize. So how are you feeling? What are you thinking? How or what are you doing based on the changes in your environment, based on the cancellation of the competitions? And you know, there's no right answer. There's just your answer. Everybody reacts differently. You know, for me, the first couple of weeks were totally fine. Switched to working out in my apartment and super busy with work. But then over the course of the weeks, I mean, what week are we on now? 12, 13? And now it's starting to wear and tear, in the sense that, it's like, yeah, like that lack of connection, that lack of interaction, lack of coaching, to be honest, right? Like I love coaching and I can't coach as much or at all in person. And so having to do less of something that I really enjoy is difficult. And that's okay. Second step, accepting and refocusing. So again, saying that's okay, I'm getting ahead of myself here. I have a little bit more practice on that acceptance piece, even though I'm trying to improve that in my own work. And then, so accepting, saying, hey, it's okay, and then refocusing on the things that you can control. So, you know what, yeah, I can go outside and go for a walk. That'll make me feel great. Or, yeah, you know, I have some weights at home, I can work out. Or yeah, I have the ability to reach out over Zoom to anybody and chat. Number 3, reconnecting with your why. So again, the way to underpin motivation is remembering why you do it. You know, why am I talking here, giving you a webinar on taking action? Because I love it, I enjoy it. I love mental training, I love coaching. And so this is where I'm in my happy place. And so I'll always be motivated to do this. And so remembering or reconnecting with your why is going to help you to stay motivated now in the long haul, because 2021 is far away. And then using that breath in times of not need, but in times of reactivity to calm yourself down and help with that acceptance. Number 4, dreaming big. So make that big goal, because that big goal is what's going to drive you. Whether it's process or outcome, whether it's performance or outcome, it's going to drive you because you can see it. That's where you want to be. Number 5, creating steps. So you know where you want to go, but how do you get there? You know, just like the compass analogy is great. Or if you have the steps on Google Maps to trying to get to a particular place, like you need those steps. They're imperative to helping you get to where you want to go. There's the process goals. overcoming obstacles. So planning and thinking about what you've done in the past, what's happened in the past, in terms of hurdles, and then applying that into the present situation. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, we've never run into a pandemic before, and that's totally right. And so then this is a real, true opportunity for us to be creative in the way that we choose to solve this problem, because it's solvable. We just have to move pieces around for us to be able to accomplish and get to our goal. And finally, together is better. So reaching out to people that are within your circle, within your network, just to talk. If people reach out to you, please listen. And they're not always looking for solutions. They're just looking for someone to talk to. And that'll bring us to the peak of the mountain. We'll make it to 2021, and we'll be more resilient and better for it when we get there, because not only have we set the sights on a higher peak, but we've enjoyed the path along the way. Questions?
That was awesome, Jason. I'm going to talk for a couple seconds and perhaps give some time for people to put any of their questions in the chat area, and then I'll call on them to actually come on their video and give those questions. But so many good, really good points in there. I'm scribbling down as much as I can, but some of the big things that I think are really important right now too is that connecting with the why. As we begin to get back on the water, some clubs and athletes are able to, and some aren't yet, but hopefully in the near future. I think all paddlers are getting this renewed love of the sport or the activity, not just the competition side and the drive for that, but just the sheer beauty of being on the water, being in nature, and this. I remember one of our coaches, Hunter George, talked about this Zen-like feeling when you're on the water. So I think that's probably a key that we either take for granted and know subconsciously is there, or don't think about it at all. But being away from it so long, I think that's going to be, a driving factor for that joy of paddling. I love when we talk to make one big goal. We're not alone. And when we're looking at those goal process or those goal questions or target areas, one thing that jumped out to me is on the coaching side is looking at those process goals and putting them down. I think we know as coaches what those are, and we get the paddlers, the athletes to think about it, but having them as important as the performance and the outcome goals, kind of really hit home for me, where those are as important to get to those end performance and outcome goals. And if they're put down on paper, it could be much easier attainable than just doing it without the plan. So thank you. I'm going to read, it's from an unknown. So we still have an unknown competition selection at the end of the season. This is from Haley. Haley, if this is yours personally, you want to come on video?
Hello. Yeah, so I was basically just asking, like, there's still an unknown of us racing in September or the end of August for a selection competition. So, like, there could still be competitions for fun, but I'm speaking more specifically about national team trials. So you kind of mentioned on like what tools we can use for this in terms of like obstacles, but I was wondering if we could talk like a little bit more specifically of like the athletes that are training right now, not knowing if they're training on like a more fun competitive level or if like they are going to be ranked, I guess, by the end of the summer, and how to handle that uncertainty right now.
I think that's a good question. I think this comes back to the idea of what's within your control and what's not, the idea of uncertainty. And so when you're faced with uncertainty, I would pick the option that you think will help you best and just assume that option. And then when it becomes certain or not, you just adjust accordingly when that happens. So they don't know whether you're going to get ranked or not. I assume that they want to rank the best that they can. And so then there's a ranking event at the end of the summer. Like that's there.
Mm-hmm.
And plan for it. And then if and when you find out that that is absolutely not a thing, again, you reevaluate and you go through the same steps that we talked about today. And this is iterative, right? It's over and over and over again. You do these things.
Mm-hmm.
It isn't only because of COVID that this happens. You kind of go through these steps as you go along in an athletic career on a regular basis.
Yeah.
But it's important to say, hey, like, okay, what can I control? And I'll focus on that, even if it's making assumptions.
Do you think it makes sense then to like compartmentalize your goals? So you like, say if we have 3 months until this like potential competition, to like break down into like goals for the end of each month and then like reevaluate, or even sooner, like every 2 weeks, or just like bite size until we actually know?
Yeah, I mean, again, if you want the best and clearest kind of path, you say, hey, I'm assuming that it's going to happen. And so your one big goal is the rankings at the end of the summer. And then you build all your process goals however you like. You can do it bi-weekly, you can do it weekly, you can do it by practice. Again, that's at the discretion of the coach and what they want to do, what they feel is best, what the athletes identify best with. You know, for me, I remember I started having these meetings because it helped me understand why the athletes were motivated, and we'd have that conversation so that if I was poolside and there was a little bit of lack of motivation, which is normal, like motivation that comes in waves, I knew exactly their why, so I could say something that triggered their why to get them back on track. And so it comes down to the athletes themselves and what do they react or what do they respond best to.
That makes a lot of sense. I had questions on process goals, but you actually answered all of them. I think that's like super important focus right now, is focusing on the process. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks. And that's kind of why I use this analogy of hiking, right? Because it's something that we can identify with. You know, why do we go for a walk in the trees? Just because we love going for a walk in the trees. It's not only to see the view. And so same thing for the process goals. Like if you have to enjoy waking up early, you have to enjoy getting out on the water, then it makes it that much easier to then enjoy the view when you get to the top.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Haley. I don't have any other questions in the chat, but I'll maybe 30 seconds, Jason, we'll just open it up to audio or video if anyone else has questions. If not, we'll close it off. In the meantime, again, I want to reiterate that we're really lucky, a great opportunity to get to work with Jason. This is step one, and we're going to plan out how best to provide services to the team, to the coaches, and the community. So, this is kind of the beginning, and we haven't had this opportunity in the past, so we're pretty excited, and we know mental performance is such a huge aspect of sport and our sport, and to be able to actually work with a consultant and professional is gonna take us along, which is great.
Yeah, I'll make a strength-based comment. You know, some of this stuff might not be new for some people. Some of it might be. Some of you might be saying, hey, like, I'm actually really good at this one piece. And I'd encourage you to lean into that strength that you have. You know, all of these strategies and solutions, they don't all have to happen for there to be success. And so if there's one that you're particularly really good at, do that one really well and knock it out of the park, and make sure you connect on that one thing with your athletes or with your coaches so that you can start from there and leverage that strength. You know, a lot of the times we think we're going to try to make our worst thing better. Well, it's like make your best thing better, so that then that kind of trickles over into the other pieces that you do. And that way you continue to be motivated and do great work.
I love that. Make your best things better. Okay, I think we're going to sign off now. Maybe just one last finish off in what Jason said earlier, that you are not alone. Again, we'll work on a system to have Jason available, but look to your teammates, your clubmates, your coach. I'm here to help and support the team and our community too. So we literally are all in the same boat, and figuratively, and we will get through it. So thank you very much, Jason. Awesome job. Thank you for everyone. And hopefully, if you're not on the water yet, you get to do in the very near future and connect with the why we paddle. So thank you again. Have a great day.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.